The railroad didn't just change how Americans traveled, it changed how they ate. Picture this. You're crossing endless prairie in the 1880s, yet a waiter sets down roast duck with cranberry sauce, oysters on ice, and even fresh strawberries in winter, on a moving train. These weren't just meals, they were spectacles of luxury and survival, cooked in swaying kitchens with no refrigeration and served on fine china as the landscape roared past. Every dish told a story of innovation, grit, and showmanship. In this video, we're uncovering 25 meals that turned railroad dining cars into five-star restaurants on wheels, and the secrets behind how they pulled it off will leave you hungry for more. 1. Broiled Filet of Sole with lemon butter and green beans. Picture yourself on a train in the 1880s, the prairie stretching endless outside your window. Then, your waiter sets down a plate of delicate filet of sole, broiled golden, drizzled with lemon butter, and served with crisp green beans. Fish, on a moving train, hundreds of miles from the nearest ocean. This was no ordinary dinner. Railroad chefs worked miracles with ice-packed barrels rushed inland from the coasts, turning fragile seafood into luxury on wheels. One taste told passengers they weren't just traveling. They were part of something bigger, a new America where the impossible was suddenly possible. In today's money, a dish like this would easily run $60 or more in a fine restaurant. Back then, it was included with your first-class ticket, a promise that the railroad could bring the world to your table. And just wait. If fish could travel across a continent, imagine what happened when they rolled out prime rib sizzling from the oven. 2. Roast prime rib with Yorkshire pudding and horseradish sauce. Now imagine the train car filling with the rich aroma of roast prime rib, juices glistening under the flicker of gas lamps. Alongside it, golden Yorkshire pudding puffed proudly, and a sharp horseradish sauce promised a kick with every bite. Passengers leaned in, forks ready, feeling a rare kind of luxury while rolling across endless fields. Chefs in the cramped kitchen had to time everything perfectly. The beef, packed on ice from distant ranches, needed hours of slow roasting, even as the train swayed and wheels rattled. Yorkshire pudding demanded a hot oven and perfect batter, or it collapsed into an unappetizing mess. Yet somehow, these moving miracles hit the tables every night, making diners feel like kings of the rails. Adjusted for 2025, a plate like this would fetch $80 to $100 in a top restaurant. On the train, it came included, a symbol of the railroad's promise. No matter how far you traveled, elegance and flavor could keep pace. And if prime rib was impressive, the next dish pushed culinary audacity even further. 3. Beef tenderloin. Steak with mushrooms and creamed spinach. On some nights, the dining car smelled like heaven, seared beef tenderloin, rich and tender, topped with earthy sautéed mushrooms, accompanied by creamy spinach that seemed almost sinful. Passengers would pause mid-bite, staring out the window at the rolling countryside, marveling that a meal this elegant could exist hundreds of miles from a kitchen. Chefs worked like magicians. The tenderloin had to be aged, packed on ice, and seared to perfection in a tiny stove swaying with every turn. Mushrooms, delicate and perishable, were prepped in advance and finished just in time. Creamed spinach, silky and buttery, demanded precision. One misstep, and it could curdle or burn. Yet the result was flawless, a moving feast that rivaled city hotels. In today's dollars, diners would pay $70 to $90 for a plate like this. On the train, it came included, a rolling testament to craftsmanship and ambition. And just as steak delighted, seafood made its next spectacular entrance. 4. Poached salmon in white wine, sauce with asparagus. The moment salmon arrived, diners felt transported. Pink, flaky fillets glistened under a delicate white wine sauce, paired with bright green asparagus, still crisp from a quick steam. It wasn't just food, it was theater on rails. Chefs faced an uphill battle. Salmon had to survive a long trip from coastal waters without modern refrigeration, then be poached precisely as the train rocked. Asparagus came from local farms along the route, chosen for peak freshness, adding color and crunch to the elegant plate. This was luxury anyone could taste on a ticket, a $65 to $80 dish in today's terms, yet it was part of the nightly menu rolling across the country. Each bite reminded passengers that trains weren't just about speed, they were about style, comfort, and surprise. And if salmon dazzled, the next dish was a hearty, all-American favorite that kept everyone coming back. 5. Chicken fricassee with peas, carrots, and mashed potatoes. The aroma of simmering chicken fricassee would hit the dining car like a warm hug. Tender pieces of chicken bathed in a creamy sauce, paired with sweet peas, tender carrots, and buttery mashed potatoes. Comfort on wheels. Passengers who'd spent hours bouncing in seats found solace in this hearty, homey dish. But preparing it on a moving train was anything but simple. Chicken had to be carefully roasted or poached, vegetables prepped to retain color and texture, and the sauce stirred constantly so it didn't curdle as the train swayed over tracks and bridges. Every plate that reached the table was a tiny victory for the chefs. Adjusted to 2025, a dish like this would cost around $45 to $55, yet on the railroad it came as part of the ticket, a promise that travel could be both nourishing and elegant. And just when diners thought they knew comfort food, the next meal brought the festive flavors of holiday tables to the rails. 6. Roast turkey breast with cranberry chutney and sweet potatoes. Thanksgiving on the rails? Almost. The dining car filled with the scent of golden roast turkey breast, juicy and tender, paired with tangy cranberry chutney and sweet buttery potatoes. Passengers who'd never seen a holiday table in person suddenly felt the warmth of a festive feast midway across the country. Chefs faced a logistical nightmare. Turkey had to be brined, roasted, and sliced just right, all in a kitchen swaying with every curve. Cranberries were preserved with care, sweet potatoes peeled and whipped to creamy perfection. Timing was everything. One delay, and the magic vanished. Yet somehow, every plate arrived steaming, a culinary triumph on moving steel. In today's dollars, this classic spread would cost $60 to $75 at a restaurant. On the train, it came included in your first-class ticket, proof that luxury travel meant not just comfort, but style and flavor at every stop. And while turkey delighted, the next dish offered a sticky sweet indulgence that kept diners talking long after dessert. 7. Ham glazed with honey and clove, with scalloped potatoes. The scent of honey and clove would drift through the dining car, drawing passengers like a magnet. Thick slices of ham, caramelized to perfection, sat atop tender scalloped potatoes baked in creamy layers. Every bite offered a perfect balance of sweet, savory, and buttery richness. Chefs had to master timing and temperature in cramped kitchens that rocked with every curve. Ham came pre-cured and sometimes smoked, then glazed just before serving so the sugar caramelized without burning. Scalloped potatoes were sliced thin, layered carefully, and baked until golden. No easy feat when your oven was jolting along steel rails. In today's money, a plate like this would cost roughly $55 to $65, yet first-class passengers enjoyed it as part of their ticket. The dish was more than food. It was a rolling showcase of skill, patience, and elegance, reminding everyone that a train ride could be a feast. And just when diners thought indulgence peaked, the next meal brought the sweet tart magic of apples and pork together. 8. Sliced roast pork, loin with apple compote and Brussels sprouts. As the train rattled along the tracks, the scent of roast pork loin, roasted to perfection, would fill the dining car. Tender, juicy slices were paired with sweet tart apple compote and caramelized Brussels sprouts, creating a harmony of flavors that felt both comforting and sophisticated. Passengers leaned over their plates, savoring a dish that made even the longest journeys feel like a celebration. Chefs had to be precise. Pork loin was carefully aged and packed on ice, then roasted evenly despite the rocking kitchen. Apples for the compote were peeled and stewed just enough to release their natural sweetness, while Brussels sprouts were blanched and finished with butter to maintain their bright green color and texture. Each plate arriving at the table was a small miracle of timing and skill. In today's dollars, a meal like this would run around $50 to $60. On the train, it was included, a rolling reminder that fine dining didn't stop at the station, and just when passengers thought they'd tasted it all, the next dish brought the ocean aboard. 9. Fried oysters and French fries with tartar sauce. Imagine the dining car alive with the briny, irresistible aroma of fried oysters sizzling in butter. Crispy on the outside, tender and juicy inside, each bite paired perfectly with golden French fries and tangy tartar sauce. For travelers far from the coast, this was a rare taste of the ocean, delivered straight to their table on a moving train. Chefs faced a serious challenge. Oysters had to be shipped on ice from distant waters, kept fresh for hours, and fried to perfection in a tiny kitchen that rocked and rattled with every turn. Fries had to stay crisp, tartar sauce balanced just right, and timing was crucial. One delay, and the magic disappeared. Yet the plates reached diners hot and flawless, a testament to the railroad's culinary skill. Adjusted for 2025, a dish like this could fetch $65 to $75 at a restaurant. On the rails, it was part of the experience, reminding everyone that travel didn't mean sacrificing luxury or flavor. Next up, a dish that paired tender meat with elegant herbs and roasted perfection. 10. Grilled lamb chops with mint jelly and roasted potatoes. The moment lamb chops hit the dining car, the aroma of charred meat and fresh herbs turned heads. Juicy, tender chops were grilled to perfection, paired with roasted potatoes crisped just right, and a dollop of mint jelly that added a bright, refreshing contrast. Passengers couldn't help but marvel, elegance and comfort all in one plate, rolling across the countryside. Chefs faced a balancing act. Lamb had to be sourced fresh, grilled evenly over moving stoves, and plated immediately to preserve juiciness. Potatoes needed to be roasted to golden perfection despite the swaying kitchen, and mint jelly prepared in advance had to maintain its vivid flavor. Each dish delivered was a tiny triumph of skill, timing, and logistics. In today's money, this plate would cost $70 to $85 in a fine dining setting. On the railroad, it came with your ticket, a promise that travel didn't mean giving up luxury or flavor. And just when diners thought they'd tasted the peak of indulgence, the next dish brought shellfish royalty straight from the ocean. 11. Lobster Thermidor with crab cakes and rice pilaf. The dining car seemed to transform into a coastal feast when Lobster Thermidor arrived. Rich, creamy lobster baked with butter, egg, and a hint of mustard, paired with golden crab cakes and fluffy rice pilaf, made passengers feel like they were dining in a five-star seaside restaurant rather than on a moving train. Chefs had to work miracles. Lobsters were shipped live or iced from the Atlantic, crab meat delicately picked and seasoned, and rice cooked to fluffy perfection, all in a tiny kitchen swaying over tracks. Timing was critical. One misstep could ruin the delicate textures or overcook the seafood. Yet every plate arrived piping hot, a testament to the railroad's ambition and culinary skill. Adjusted to 2025, this decadent meal could easily fetch $90 to $110. On the train, it came as part of the experience, a luxurious promise that even on rails, you could taste the ocean. And just when diners thought the menu couldn't get more exotic, the next dish brought rich, festive flavors straight from Europe. 12. Roast duckling with orange glaze and braised cabbage. The dining car filled with the sweet, citrusy aroma of roast duckling, its skin golden and crisp, brushed with a luscious orange glaze. Paired with tender braised cabbage, the dish felt like a miniature European banquet rolling across the American plains. Passengers marveled that such elegance could exist hundreds of miles from the nearest city. Chefs had to juggle timing, heat, and motion. Ducklings were roasted carefully to retain juiciness, the orange glaze added at just the right moment so it caramelized without burning. cabbage was braised to softness, flavored with spices, and plated elegantly. Every dish arriving at the table was a small miracle, proving that first-class rail travel meant more than speed. It meant culinary theater. In today's dollars, a plate like this would run $75 to $90. On the train, it was included in your ticket, an indulgence that reminded travelers luxury could move with them, and if duck was impressive, the next dish elevated refinement even further. 13. Veal cutlet with herb pan sauce and buttered peas. As soon as the veal cutlet arrived, diners knew they were in for something special. Tender, lightly seared veal rested under a fragrant herb pan sauce, accompanied by buttery peas that popped with freshness. Each bite was delicate yet flavorful, a perfect balance of elegance and comfort on the rails. Chefs faced a challenge. Veal had to be tender and evenly cooked, despite the rocking kitchen, while the herb pan sauce needed to be silky, aromatic, and perfectly emulsified. Peas were blanched quickly to preserve color and texture, then tossed in butter before plating. Timing, precision, and skill were essential for every plate leaving the kitchen. In today's terms, this dish could cost $65 to $80 at a fine restaurant. On the train, it came with the ticket, a promise that sophistication and quality didn't stop at the station. And just when passengers thought they'd tasted refinement, the next dish offered a hearty, festive flavor reminiscent of a holiday feast. 14. Turkey breast roast with herb stuffing and root vegetables. The moment turkey breast roast appeared, passengers felt a sense of comfort and celebration. Juicy slices of turkey, stuffed with fragrant herbs, were paired with roasted root vegetables, carrots, parsnips, and potatoes, glazed to perfection. It was a hearty, homey dish that made a long train ride feel like a holiday gathering. Chefs had to time everything carefully. The turkey needed to be roasted evenly despite the rocking kitchen, stuffing moist but not soggy, and root vegetables tender yet firm. Each plate required coordination, skill, and perfect timing to ensure the meal arrived piping hot and visually appealing. In today's money, a meal like this would run around $55 to $70. On the train, it was included with first-class tickets, proving that luxury dining could travel with you. And just when diners thought they'd experienced the pinnacle of flavor, the next dish brought French elegance to the rails. 15. Beef tenderloin, bordelaise, with pomme parisienne. The dining car seemed to transform into a Parisian bistro when beef tenderloin bordelaise arrived. Juicy tenderloin, smothered in a rich red wine and shallot sauce, was paired with perfectly round golden pomme parisienne, tiny roasted potatoes that looked like jewels on the plate. Passengers felt they'd been transported straight to Europe, even as the American prairie rushed past the windows. Chefs faced an extraordinary challenge. Tenderloin had to be seared and cooked to precise doneness in a rocking kitchen, the bordelaise sauce balanced perfectly with wine and butter, and pomme parisienne roasted evenly despite the movement of the train. Precision and timing were critical. Every plate leaving the kitchen was a small triumph. In 2025, a dish like this could easily fetch $85 to $100 in a fine restaurant. On the train, it came as part of the first-class experience, a rolling testament to the art of culinary luxury. And just as passengers savored France on a plate, the next meal brought the Atlantic straight to the rails. 16. Baked cod with dill butter and new potatoes. The gentle aroma of baked cod with dill butter filled the dining car, bringing a taste of the sea to travelers far from the coast. Flaky, tender cod was topped with rich, herb-infused butter, served alongside tender new potatoes that absorbed every savory drop. Passengers leaned over their plates, savoring a meal that felt fresh, light, and perfectly balanced. Chefs had to work miracles. Cod was shipped iced from northern waters, cooked just long enough to remain delicate and moist, while dill butter was whipped to enhance flavor without overpowering the fish. Potatoes were boiled to just the right tenderness and finished in butter for shine and taste. Timing was crucial. The rocking train left no room for error. Adjusted to today's dollars, this simple yet elegant dish would cost around $55 to $65. On the railroad, it was part of the experience, proof that even on rails, travelers could enjoy freshness, refinement, and a true taste of the ocean. Next, we'll dive into a dish that made game birds the highlight of the menu. 17. Cornish game, hen with herb stuffing and glazed carrots. Tiny, tender Cornish game hens arrived like little crowns on the table, each roasted to golden perfection, stuffed with fragrant herbs, and served alongside sweet glazed carrots. The dish felt both delicate and indulgent. Passengers marveled at the finesse, a full meal that looked like it belonged in a grand dining room, yet was served on a train barreling through the countryside. Chefs faced a juggling act. Game hens had to be roasted evenly in small, rocking ovens, the herb stuffing moist but flavorful, and carrots glazed just enough to be sweet without losing texture. Every plate demanded precision and timing. Any misstep could ruin the presentation or taste. In today's terms, a plate like this could cost $60 to $75 at a fine restaurant. On the rails, it was part of the first-class experience, a small luxury that made travelers feel pampered and spoiled. And just when diners thought they'd seen it all, the next dish brought the decadence of the sea straight to their forks. 18. Deviled crab cakes with lemon aioli and side salad. The scent of fresh crab filled the dining car, teasing passengers before the first bite. Golden brown crab cakes, crispy on the outside and tender inside, were paired with zesty lemon aioli and a crisp, refreshing side salad. For travelers hundreds of miles from the ocean, it was a rare taste of coastal luxury. Chefs had to work quickly and precisely. Crab meat arrived fresh or iced, carefully seasoned, and formed into cakes that cooked evenly despite the rocking train. Lemon aioli had to be whipped to a silky texture, balancing richness with a hint of tang, while the salad stayed crisp and vibrant. Each plate that reached the table was a tiny triumph of skill and timing. Adjusted to 2025, a plate like this would fetch $65 to $80 at a fine restaurant. On the train, it was included in the ticket, a reminder that even on rails, elegance, flavor, and freshness were never compromised. Next, a dish that brought red carpet refinement to the rails. 19. Filet mignon with port wine reduction and sautéed mushrooms. When filet mignon appeared on the dining car menu, jaws dropped. Tender, juicy, and seared to perfection, it came draped in a deep, glossy port wine reduction, accompanied by earthy, sautéed mushrooms. This wasn't just a steak, it was a statement. The railroad could bring fine dining anywhere, even the middle of Kansas. Chefs worked in tight, rocking kitchens, ensuring each fillet hit the table just right. The port reduction added richness and depth, the mushrooms brought umami, and together they transformed a simple piece of beef into a culinary masterpiece. Passengers leaned forward, savoring each bite while the landscape blurred outside the window. In 2025, a fillet like this could run $80 to $100 at a high-end steakhouse. Back then, it was part of the dining car spectacle, proof that America's railroads could deliver sophistication at 40 miles an hour. And just when travelers thought the menu couldn't surprise them further, the next dish served comfort and showmanship together, all in a single plate. 20. Chicken a la king over toast. Points and mixed vegetables. The moment chicken a la king hit the table, the dining car filled with a rich, creamy aroma. Tender chunks of chicken were enveloped in a buttery sauce, dotted with colorful bell peppers and peas, and served over crisp toast points. It was comfort and elegance rolled into one, a dish that made long journeys feel indulgent and homey at the same time. Chefs had to choreograph everything perfectly. Chicken needed to remain tender, the sauce creamy without separating, and vegetables vibrant and slightly crisp. Toast points were toasted to golden perfection right before plating. All of this had to happen in a rocking, narrow kitchen, often under the pressure of a full dining car. In today's terms, this plate would cost around $50 to $65 at a restaurant. On the train, it came included, proving that travel didn't mean sacrificing flavor or presentation. And just when diners thought they had seen every twist on meat and sauce, the next dish brought an unexpected bold flavor straight to the table. 21. Tongue and onion steak with mashed potatoes. It might sound unusual today, but tongue steak was a delicacy on the rails. Rich, tender slices of beef tongue were paired with caramelized onions and creamy mashed potatoes, creating a dish that was hearty, flavorful, and surprisingly elegant. Passengers leaned in with curiosity and left impressed by the depth of flavor. Chefs faced a unique challenge. Tongue required slow cooking to achieve the right tenderness, then precise slicing to serve perfectly. Onions were caramelized to a deep, sweet flavor without burning, and mashed potatoes whipped to creamy perfection. Timing and coordination were critical. A misstep could ruin texture or taste. Yet every plate left the moving kitchen looking and tasting flawless. Adjusted to today's standards, this dish would cost around $55 to $70 in a fine restaurant. On the train, it was part of first-class dining, a testament to the culinary ambition and daring of railroad chefs. And just when passengers thought they had tasted it all, the next dish brought wild game straight from the forests to their forks. 22. Game birds roasted with herbs and vegetables. The arrival of roasted game birds, quail or snipe, was a showstopper. Small, tender, and packed with flavor, each bird was seasoned with fragrant herbs and served alongside roasted root vegetables. Passengers marveled at the delicate presentation, feeling as though they had stepped into a woodland banquet, even as the train rattled across the plains. Chefs had to be precise. Game birds are delicate and cook quickly. Overcooking would dry them out. Undercooking was unacceptable. Roasted vegetables had to retain color and texture, and the herbs had to infuse flavor without overpowering the meat. Every plate demanded coordination, timing, and skill to ensure perfection from moving stoves to the passenger table. In $25, this dish could cost $65 to $80 in a fine dining restaurant. On the train, it was included in the ticket, a rolling feast that brought luxury, flavor, and adventure together. And just when diners thought they had experienced every flavor, the next dish brought another coastal indulgence. 23. Dover sole, poached with lemon and parsley, with braised spinach. The dining car smelled like the ocean as Dover sole arrived. Silky, delicate fillets were poached to perfection, topped with a bright lemon and parsley garnish, and paired with tender braised spinach. For passengers far from the coast, this dish was a rare taste of freshness and refinement, each bite light yet bursting with flavor. Chefs faced a delicate balancing act. Dover sole is fragile and must be cooked just right to avoid flaking apart. Lemon and parsley had to enhance without overpowering, while spinach was braised to tender perfection with just enough butter to enrich the dish. All of this was executed in a rocking kitchen where timing and precision were everything. In 2025 terms, a plate like this would cost around $70 to $85 in a fine restaurant. On the train, it was included with the ticket, a rolling testament to skill, elegance, and culinary ambition. And just when diners thought the menu was complete, the next dish brought the sweetness of breakfast to the rails. 24. French toast with fruit compote and maple syrup. As the train rolled through sleepy towns and open fields, the sweet aroma of French toast filled the dining car. Golden slices, soaked and perfectly fried, were topped with a vibrant fruit compote and drizzled with rich maple syrup. It was a comforting, indulgent treat that felt like breakfast and dessert rolled into one. Chefs had to manage timing and consistency in a moving kitchen. The bread needed to soak just long enough to absorb the custard without falling apart, compote cooked to release natural sweetness, and syrup warmed to the perfect pour. Every plate delivered that balance of softness, sweetness, and warmth passengers craved. Adjusted for 2025, this indulgent dish would cost $35 to $45 at a quality restaurant. On the train, it was included in the dining experience, a sweet reminder that even on rails, luxury and comfort went hand in hand. And just when passengers thought the journey couldn't get any sweeter, the next and final dish brought a simple, elegant finish. 25. Ice cream and fresh fruit with pastry. The grand finale of the dining car menu arrived, a scoop of creamy ice cream paired with fresh seasonal fruit and a delicate pastry. It was light, refreshing, and indulgent all at once, a perfect end to a rolling feast that had stretched from coast to coast. Passengers savored each bite, the sweetness melting in their mouths, while the scenery sped past the windows. Chefs faced a final challenge, keeping ice cream cold in a moving train with no modern refrigeration. Fruit had to be fresh, vibrant, and perfectly ripe, while pastries were baked to golden perfection and delivered without a crumble out of place. The balance of textures, smooth ice cream, juicy fruit, flaky pastry, made every plate a miniature masterpiece. In today's dollars, this dessert would cost around $25 to $35 at a restaurant. On the train, it was part of the ticket, a final indulgence that reminded passengers that railroad dining was more than travel. It was an experience of luxury, skill, and surprise. And with that last bite, the journey of taste across America came to a sweet, unforgettable close. Looking back, these 25 meals weren't just about food, they were a statement. They told passengers, traveling across America didn't mean giving up luxury, flavor, or elegance. From broiled sole to ice cream with fresh fruit, every plate was a miracle of timing, skill, and imagination, proving that railroad dining cars weren't just kitchens on wheels. They were moving restaurants, theaters of taste, and symbols of a new era. Every bite connected travelers to distant coasts, European culinary traditions, and the very heart of America itself. Chefs defied the limits of space, heat, and motion, transforming simple ingredients into experiences passengers would remember for a lifetime. These meals weren't just eaten. They were experienced, savored, and talked about long after the train had pulled into the next station. It's a reminder that even in motion, in chaos, in the middle of a long journey, humans crave and can create moments of beauty, luxury, and joy.